Rev up your engines!
Well, here we go. What can the Biden administration have to do with transportation? Well, Pete Buttigieg is now Secretary of Transportation. And he gave a little talk where he said all options are on the table. And they asked him, are they going to have a gasoline tax to help pay for all this stuff? And he said everything's on the table. But 2 hours later, spokesman did a turnaround and said, oh, no, we're not going to do that because they're going to pretend that they're not tax and spend Democrats, which is, of course, what they are. Biden himself has been a proponent of rail. Obviously, there's money coming here and there. The East Coast, where they have a reasonable amount of rail just to take the people from the suburbs to the city. Let's talk about Amtrak here, people, and public transportation. One, I've ridden on Amtrak, and I would not want the government running my transportation. It was one of the worst experiences I ever had. And to give an even more interesting perspective on such modes of transportation, I went to England a couple of years ago, and everyone brags about the English have marvelous trains. What a joke that was. I rode on a train going to London. It was like a 2-hour ride. The whole time the train smelled like raw sewage because no one bothered to clean the toilet. It smelled that way the whole 2 hours. It was nauseating. And when I was waiting for the train, I talked to an Englishman and I said, hey, I see there's a lot of space in this terminal here, but there's no tracks. I said, what's going on? He says, oh, well, the government, they're taking half the tracks out, especially the tracks going to the smaller places because that's not economical. So they told everybody, oh, great trains, and then they take them away. And then the ones that are there, they talk about them running on time. That was a bunch of nonsense, too. Oh, yeah, and I forgot to mention, the baggage car was broken on this big train, so nobody could put their baggage. So there was baggage all over the place because the baggage train was broken, and nobody decided to fix the lock on it. So that didn't work either. So government running transportation, hey, maybe we'll all end up staying home even when the coronavirus is done because the government would be running our transportation system. Now, I'm not arguing the infrastructure needs rebuilding. Look at the roads. Some are falling apart. So, of course, they said they're going to spend all this money on the roads, and no mention of where the money's coming from, but, magically money's going to come out from the sky to fix all the potholes. Seems the politicians are always talking about fixing potholes, It's kind of like kissing babies, fixing potholes. Then they say all this money they're going to spend, $1.3 trillion over 10 years, is going to, and I quote them, create millions of middle-class jobs. Politicians are always promising things that never get done. I mean, that's a history in this country. And these guys talking about fixing the infrastructure, I'm not holding my breath. If I got a pothole here in Tennessee, I guess if it's in front of my house here, I'll fix it myself. That's their plan. We're all getting all these wild promises again that the trains are going to save us all. No, they aren't. They've been digging up train tracks for ages. Plus, in the United States, if you look at anything now, the coronavirus making it even faster. People moving out of the cities into the suburbs to get away. And there's no trains going to most of the suburbs around here, around most of America. So, what are they going to do? Spend more trillions building railroad tracks? I don't think that's going to happen either. Well, here we go. I'm on pins and needles. Toyota has refiled for their trademark on the name Celica. And of course, people are a buzz. Oh, they're going to make Celicas again. They're going to be cool if they did. But a lot of that is just, they don't want somebody else taking the name. If the name goes up, somebody else could buy it and make it, and they couldn't do anything about it. So that's why they're filing for it, probably. And this is the second time they filed for it. They filed for it before and got it. Every so many years, you got to refile to keep a name. But it would be cool if they decided to make Celicas. But if they do, I hope it's not like Ford calling their electric vehicle a Mustang when it's an SUV. It has nothing to do with the sports car. It's a completely different type of vehicle. A lot of the stuff is just in name only. Sometimes people get a little bit carried away. Look at General Motors. They changed their logo, but they only changed their logo for corporate use. The buildings, their letterheads on business letters. They're not changing it on the cars or anything. So let's hope that they don't just come up with a Celica and it's a rebranded BMW or Suzuki or something like that. That if they do, it would be an actual Celica, Maybe make it an electric Celica. That'd be cool because electric cars are fast and they could be fast and zoomy and fun to drive. Tariq says, I got a 2020 Subaru BRZ with 10,000 miles. It was in a minor accident, but they replaced the radiator because the radiator's bracket was bent. A few weeks later, it overheated, and I took it in, and they said, well, they didn't bleed the air out of the radiator. My concern is the engine damaged because of that? Well, it depends on how hot it got and how far you drove it. This is a problem with body shops in general, is they do body work, but then they'll like, oh, well, anybody can put a radiator. We'll put the radiator in it. And they do it wrong because a lot of body shops, the guys are body men. That's it. They don't know how to fix cars. They know how to do body work. But then they force the guy who doesn't know how to do mechanical work, do it in your case, didn't get the air out of the system and caused overheating. I would definitely keep a record of it in case of future problem. Now, the problem is that we're in a wreck. And let's say your engine goes. Subaru probably won't warranty. They see your car was in a wreck. And they'll say, your warranty's void because your car was in a wreck. So you want to have that proof of what the body shop did. They went in and they had to get the air out because if your engine does have a problem, the body shop's the one that have to fix it, and your insurance company would have to sue the body shop for incorrect work, which gets to be a big stinker. That's why I say, whenever you get your car in a wreck, you get out of a body shop, take it to your mechanic, and let him check it out. I do that for my customers all the time. I will say, bring it over after you get it back, and if all possible, bring it over here before you sign off. Because I might find stuff and say it's not fixed, take it back. Because once you sign off, it's hard as heck to get your car to get fixed by those guys because they already made their money and they don't want to touch it anymore. So always have a mechanic check out a car after wreck work is done with insurance companies just to make sure it was done correctly. It's a big deal. B Farley 88 says, Scotty, love the channel. My husband's 2018 Honda Accord was just totaled in a wreck. We need a new car. You want to buy a 2018 or newer? What do you recommend? Camry, Accord, Corolla hatchback, or Honda Civic? Well, you picked 4 really good cars, you know? My advice would be road test them all and see which one you like. Now, the Toyota Corolla hatchback is going to get better gas mileage than the Honda Accord. It's not as luxurious, but they can last a really long time. Same thing as the Honda Civic. So what size car do you want? Those are all good cars. If you want more luxury, get a Camry or get an Accord. If you don't care that much about luxury, get a Corolla or Civic and get better gas mileage. But those are all excellent choices. You're not picking crappy ones. They're all good. Just road test them all and see which one you like and buy the one you like because they're all good. JBLR says, I'm looking at Ford Focus 2011. Is it reliable? Should I get it? Seems on carcomplaints.com the car is good. Has 120,000 miles on a 2011 Focus. No. Realize that Ford is buying a bunch of Focuses back because they had problems. They were so poorly made. This is why you don't go buy things like carcomplaints.com or whatever on the internet. You don't know what the data is based on. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Back in Houston, I knew a mechanic. His shop was always winning these awards, best shop of the year and all this garbage, right? Well, he was just having his mechanics in their downtime type up great reviews of his business and voting as best shop in Houston. You know, you're going to see this kind of stuff. And you don't know what it's based on. But those aren't good cars. They aren't. They just aren't. Especially with 120,000 miles up. I had a customer who had 90,000. The transmission went out, I think. So don't buy that car. Look at an equivalent size car, a Corolla, a Civic, even a later model Mazda. You know, they're decent made cars, but not the Ford Focuses. No, that's and they don't make them anymore. They stopped making them. They didn't have such a great reputation. They're no longer even made. So don't buy it. Kim Beck says, Scotty, I'm thinking of purchasing a new vehicle. My heart is a Toyota. I like to look at the Nissan Qashqai. My husband is a huge fan, says stay away from CVT transmission Nissan. Is their standard transmission worth it, or am I looking for trouble and stay with Toyota? Stay with Toyota. Let me tell you, the quality of Nissan just isn't there, you know? Gonna force yourself to buy it. Definitely get the standard transmission if they make that version with the standard, not just the CVT, because the Nissan CVT transmissions, those Jatco CVTs are the worst CVTs on the market, so you wouldn't want to buy one anyways. But overall, you could pay more for a Toyota, but the thing's gonna last so much longer. If you put serious miles on it, yes. Now, let's say you're going to buy a vehicle and get rid of it when it has 80,000 miles. What the heck? You're not going to care. If you want to keep it a really long time, don't even think about the Nissan. Kaizen said, for your average daily driver, is there significant difference between a 4-bolt hub versus a 5-bolt hub? Or is it a prestige factor? All things being equal, which one is better than the other? 5-bolt is better because there's more bolts holding it on, so if one falls off, it'll still be okay. It's just production. It's cheaper to make a 4-bolt one, right? And so if they got smaller, cheaper cars, they'll only use 4 bolts to hold them on. The 5 bolts, of course, is going to clamp them more evenly because there's 5 spaced over a wider area. There's 5 bolts, so the bolts are closer together, so it's better clamping force. It's just cheaper to make them with 4. I mean, that's just the way that it goes. You look at those big trucks, they got tons of bolts. They have to. They can't hold them on for those trucks carrying all that weight with all the power that they have in them. So it doesn't really matter. Most cars are designed perfectly fine. They'll run either way. But, of course, it's safer with 5 because you have more clamping force. It's just obvious. Then, like I say you live up north and one breaks off. Well, if you got 4 out of 5 on, yeah. But if you only have 3 out of 4, maybe not as safe, you know? So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.